Okay, welcome. Good evening. We're getting this one started just in a moment. Before we actually start, um, can I ask for a quick show of hands, or maybe you can just type in the chat uh, if there's anyone in this Zoom meeting who doesn't speak Mandarin Chinese. If you do not speak Mandarin Chinese, just type in the chat. Okay, is there anyone, one more time, is there anyone who doesn't speak Mandarin Chinese? Let us know in the chat. We got two speakers tonight, myself. I can be bilingual in a way. Matt Thompson, he's learning Chinese, but not frequent enough to give a seminar yet. So let us know if you do not speak Mandarin Chinese. No? Okay, so I am assuming that everybody speaks Mandarin Chinese. Okay, so if that's the case, because Matt is going to be presenting in English, I will be doing a bit of translation. Oh, there is. Sorry. There's someone who do not speak Mandarin.
Oh, the first one's me. Second one is Sherry, who has some Mandarin, I believe.
Okay. No, there are a couple more sent to my private.
Oh, I see.
Private chat box. Okay, so yeah, okay, let's do this. Matt will be presenting in English for sure. So I'll be doing a quick recap, okay, very brief in Mandarin Chinese on the slides that Matt presents. And then after that, when I present my slides, I'll be trying to be bilingual, okay? A little bit Chinese, a little bit English. So that way everybody will be happy. All right. Okay. Welcome. Good evening one more time. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we're going to be talking about crypto, obviously. So Matt will be presenting first. He's going to be talking about the crypto courses, the course design, why we need to learn crypto, what would be the course expectations, and then after that, I'll be talking a bit about the history of crypto currency, blockchain, DeFi, NFT, and Metaverse. So after that, we're going to do a bit of Q&A. All right. So without further ado, let me turn the podium microphone to Matt. All right. So yours, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Henry. Welcome in, everybody. So we've got a very exciting new class that we're launching next semester. It is cryptocurrency. We've touched on it briefly during our fairly successful launch of a finance class. I was just pleasantly surprised how much appetite there seems to be among the parents and the students at LinkKey to just learn more about finance. Understanding how to take control of your own finances is an extremely empowering experience. And it's been a real joy to be able to help young people go through this experience far younger than I ever did. One of the things I'm always trying to do at LinkKey is think, what class do I wish I learned in high school, and ask, how can I bring it to my customers? And that's really what we're doing with this cryptocurrency class. So first, we have to get this out of the way. We are not financial advisors. We're not giving you financial advice. I don't tell people what to buy. Whether you're my brother or my student or somebody I met on the street or someone I'm talking to on Twitter, I'm never going to tell you what to do with your money. If you think you hear financial advice, you are mistaken. I'm never going to tell you or your kids what to buy. I rarely even discuss what I have bought or thought was a good idea to buy. With that out of the way, let's get into the itinerary for today. We're going to begin with a brief introduction to the cryptocurrency ecosystem. This is a subject I love. I could talk about this for 3 hours, so I'm going to have to be very careful to just stay within the boundaries of today's presentation. Henry's also got some of the more technical side to this that he's going to be diving into later, so I'm going to be giving more of a cursory pass the first time. Essentially, what I want to do is ensure that if you don't know what this is, or if you've only heard a little bit about it, you're not totally lost during today's presentation. But I also don't want to give a full 101 to the people here who do know what we're talking about. I'm trying to give a little bit of something to everybody. After that, we're going to be answering this question, which I think is very important. Why learn about crypto? Why learn about this ecosystem at all? Specifically, what we're going to be focusing on today is the ways that crypto innovations are disrupting existing industries and what kind of opportunities those create for young people. This is fun for me. Technology is often looked at as this sort of monster coming over the hill in the future whenever we talk about job prospects, right? Every year we seem to lose more jobs to new technological innovations. Just today, I walked through my Shoppers Drug Mart and was surprised to see that there were no cashiers working today. It was just computer screens. That's all I had to interact with today. This is happening absolutely everywhere. And usually we see it as a bearish sign for young people. This industry has new opportunities. And if you are a person who is well versed in these areas, these can represent new types of careers that had never existed before. They're going to be the first people into these industries. They are already digital natives. They can also be crypto natives. We're going to discuss what we plan to teach in the class. We're going to essentially go from the beginnings of Bitcoin, which was not that long ago, 13 years, but in tech, that could seem like ancient history to some people. And we're going to bring it all the way up to today's frontier of the metaverse, which is exciting or terrifying depending on who you are and how you want to engage with this space. Finally, we're going to go over how we plan to teach this class. What we really want to do with all of our courses, but especially one involving technology, is that we want to take a complex subject and make it accessible, but also enjoyable. This is especially true during distance learning. I'm sure you've heard it from your students, or I know I've got a couple of students in the room right now, so I'm sure you can relate to this. Every class today starts to feel samey. You log into the computer screen, your teacher's just on a little box, they give you an assignment, you check the Google Classroom. What we really want to do is try to infuse some energy into the class and make sure that people are enjoying themselves, because it's my belief that the more you're enjoying learning, the more you're willing to learn. So let's get into it. What is crypto and why should I care? We're going to begin with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a lot of different things to a lot of people. I find it easiest to understand as an invention. Any good invention needs to solve a problem. One of the hallmarks of a bad invention is something that solves a problem that nobody has. I think back to when I was a kid, I used to watch these VHSs that my grandparents made. They would like record a movie that was on CTV or something that night, and I'd see all these cool old commercials from the 1980s. And there was one called The Clapper, and the idea was you clap your hands and the light switch will turn off. And oh man, I remember watching this commercial and thinking, why do we still have light switches? Because it didn't solve a problem that people had. 99% of consumers were perfectly capable of flipping a light switch on and off, and clapping, for example, right after finishing a book while your partner has fallen asleep next to you, is not particularly convenient when it comes to turning off your light switch. So when we look at something like Bitcoin, we have to ask, is this problem real? Are they actually providing value for somebody who might participate in this ecosystem? So let's look at the problems that Bitcoin is attempting to solve. First off, I'm going to try to make this as clear and easy as possible. I've got these problems organized from least complicated to most complicated. We're not going to spend a lot of time on double spend, but we begin with trust minimization, and I'm aware that that might already sound like something that you don't care about. So let me try to make this problem just as clear as I can. Within the financial industry, or really within any financial transaction, there's an element of trust. When I walk into Tim Hortons and I purchase a cup of coffee, they have created a product, they've given it to me, and I'm now giving them money. If I give them cash, they're trusting me in two ways. First, they're trusting that I'm giving them real money. And two, they're trusting that that money represents value somewhere else in the future. So the main party that they're trusting is the Canadian government and myself, who's giving them Canadian currency. This gets more complicated the more digital a payment becomes. If I pay them with my debit card, they're trusting that the money is actually going to move to their account. If I pay them with my Visa card, they're trusting that Visa will pay them, and Visa's trusting that I will pay Visa. Now, the more complicated the transaction becomes, the more layers of fees we start to find. Most of you, I'm sure, do not actually use your debit card to make transactions because there are transaction fees. Instead, you prefer to use your credit card. Every time you're borrowing money from Visa, MasterCard, etc., if you don't pay them back in a timely fashion, you need to pay them fees. You often have to pay fees to keep the cards open. Furthermore, in order to get that credit card to begin with, Visa needs a whole bunch of information about you. Where do you live? How much money do you make? Do you pay your bills on time? This is because they don't trust you. They can't trust you. They don't know who you are. So they need to know more and more information about you, the riskier the transaction becomes. The idea here with Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies that come after it is that if I have the money, much like I would in a cash transaction, I don't need to know who you are. When I pay for my coffee with cash, nobody knows where I live or how much money I make or if I pay my bills because they know the money on the table is good. So if you know the transaction is complete, you don't need to know anything about the person sending you the transaction. This is where you'll always hear anonymity start to come in with Bitcoin. But the better way to understand it is privacy. The person you're transacting with doesn't need to know who you are, so you shouldn't have to give them that information. Speaking of moving money, we move on to the second problem, moving money across space. Now, this has been a problem that money has been trying to solve for a long time in different iterations. For example, we have a gold coin or a gold bar. It's transferable, you could carry it. It's kind of risky. We think about stagecoach robberies in the Wild West, for example, right? People moving large amounts of money are vulnerable to be robbed. Think about whenever you've seen a Brinks truck driving down the street, right? That truck could be full of $3-4 million. And so it's wrapped in iron and guarded by people wearing bulletproof vests and carrying guns. There are problems that arise when we try to move money across space. The more digitized the money becomes, generally, the safer it gets. We'll get into security later. But one of the goals here with Bitcoin is that you can move money across space very quickly. It would take me a long time to send physical money to Japan. With Bitcoin, I can do it in 10 minutes. I can also do it for $5, and that's quite appealing. When we talk about other industries, MoneyGram, Western Union, these are all areas that are going to be disrupted by digital currency because we can just do it ourselves now. Why do I need to go to a Western Union and fill out a whole bunch of information, because they can't trust me, and pay them a large fee, because they're the only option I have, to send money to another country when I can just use my phone and send it to a person who I know? I trust them, they trust me. Maybe I'm sending it to a relative, maybe I'm making a purchase, maybe I'm hiring somebody to write something for me or edit something for me online. All of this can be accomplished with something like Bitcoin. Our next problem that we're trying to solve is storing value across time. This has made cryptocurrencies very interesting to a lot of people over the past year. I don't know how closely some of you follow financial news, but just this week we got an inflation print of 7% year over year for the month of December, rather disturbing to a lot of people. If we're dealing with something like Bitcoin, it has programmed scarcity. There will never be more Bitcoin. The idea is the supply of Bitcoin can never be inflated. As such, it can act as a better storehold of value across time compared to something like paper money. I recall reading a story about some archaeologists who excavated the basement of a samurai's house in Japan, and they found this large clay pot filled to the brim with copper coins. At the time, this was a small fortune. Today, rather worthless. An interesting curio that people could look at, but had he been able to pass this down generation after generation, he would not have been able to secure his wealth. And part of the goal with a digitized currency like Bitcoin is that it doesn't degrade, it can't be inflated, it can't be messed with, and you know what it's going to do in the future. Sound money is the way it's often described. As I said, we'll spend a little bit of time on our final problem. This problem has a lot more to do with financial technology than it does sort of the real world application of money, but it's referred to as the double spend problem. And it's what the Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto set out to solve when he originally wrote the Bitcoin white paper, which Henry will be talking to you about later. The problem with double spend is the idea that you could write a promise to spend some money and then write a second promise to spend the same amount of money. We have different examples of this in the real world. Additional mortgages or loans could be taken out against the same piece of property, sometimes legally, sometimes not so much. We have concepts such as check kiting, where a person will write a check for money that doesn't exist, or perhaps it does exist, but they've written 4 checks for the same amount of money. And so when the bank approves the check and then receives the second check, the second person who has interacted with this merchant is now out of luck. The goal here with Bitcoin is that it exists on a decentralized network. We'll get into it. It's referred to as the blockchain. But what you need to know about it to understand the rest of this presentation is that when something moves on the blockchain, when some coins go from one wallet to another wallet, when a transaction occurs between 2 people, it is immediately finalized. You can't go back, you can't undo it, you can't call Visa and cancel your credit card within 30 days. The money has already moved. Just as sure as me passing money across the table to a merchant or handing a gold bar over to a pirate. The money is gone, the money has moved, I cannot spend it a second time. And this was a large issue when cryptocurrencies were first being created that Bitcoin solved via the blockchain. The rest of the crypto ecosystem can be summarized as an attempt to improve upon or adjust these solutions. So for example, some coins seek to send money faster, but might do so by sacrificing the decentralized nature or the trust minimized nature of the network. Some coins might have vastly improved security, but in doing so, it's much harder to move your money. We're dealing with a set of compromises, different types of alterations to the way Bitcoin works. Or other aspects of the ecosystem seek to take this solution and apply it to other areas. So for example, this is an interesting idea for money. What if we applied it to other types of property? Digitized ownership or music producing rights or the ability to tokenize a piece of artwork and sell it to several people, just like you would shares in a company. There's a lot of very interesting applications for this type of technology, and we're going to get into as many of them as is feasible in 16 weeks within this class. Henry, did you want to go section by section, or do you want to do the whole thing when I'm done?
You can go all the way through.
Okay. So here's our second section. Why should I learn about any of this? Why is this interesting? Why does this matter? My response is that this ecosystem is disrupting multiple existing industries and is creating many new opportunities. If you don't understand the technology, stuff will kind of happen to you. If you do understand what's going on, you can be a part of the change, or at the very least, protect yourself from the change, depending on what your chosen career path is. Let's start to look at some of the industries that are being disrupted. We'll begin with the most obvious one, banking and financial tech. I touched on this briefly, but let's get into this. The banks are the old gatekeepers of the financial world. The first place you send your child to learn about money is usually the bank, We get them a savings account from a young age. We'll get them set up with a debit card. Now they can go out to lunch with their friends. They take their money, they put it in the bank. They earn basically no interest. And we watch as our money gets chewed up by inflation. But that's our only option. The only way that we have to save money effectively, aside from the old shove it under the mattress, which nobody really thinks is a very good idea. Aside from banks, we have other types of financial technology. We have different types of investing vehicles, whether they're ETFs, index funds, bonds, right? We have all these different things that financial services help us gain access to, because I can't, well, I suppose I could with my government. I could go and buy a bond from the Canadian government. It's much easier to do it through the Toronto Dominion Bank, for example, or to purchase bonds or other equities from individual companies. Again, you could do it independently, but most people would use a stock exchange. And in doing so, again, we're paying fees and we're giving up certain degrees of control over to these entities. And eventually they eat up so much of your money or sap so much of your power that some of us sit around wondering why we're doing it at all if we can barely keep up with inflation at the end of the day. What crypto gives you is an ability to directly interface with the asset without the need for intermediaries. It's true, today we have exchanges. Exchanges are a pretty easy way to do it, and I do pay fees on exchanges. However, you could still purchase this stuff peer-to-peer if you wanted to. And that's sort of emblematic of how this space works. The more you're willing to learn about it, the more you're able to do on your own. Certain people will stop at certain levels. If my grandfather called me tomorrow and told me that he was getting interested in cryptocurrency, I would not recommend that he take self-custody of his funds. I would set him up with an online custodian, because I know that guy's not going to lose his seed phrase and his money. Beyond banking, I mentioned Western Union. There's a couple of very interesting use cases when it comes to using Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrency to sidestep a network that is just utterly abusing their consumers. Just this past year, if you're in this space, you have heard about this already, so I'll try to be somewhat brief. But just this past year, we saw a Latin American nation, El Salvador, begin to adopt Bitcoin as a legal currency, but they're also beginning to build their own industry. El Salvador's first steps into this space occurred a couple of years ago, and it had to do with remittances. Just to explain what remittances are, people who are working abroad, let's say in America, work their job, take their pay their rent, pay their food, and then take their excess money and send it back home to their families. Some of these workers do not have proper paperwork to be in their host countries. Others do, but either way, they need to take this money and send it home. One of the primary threats, well, it was kind of a hybrid threat promise made by Donald Trump in 2016, was that he would build a massive wall across the border with Mexico, and he would make Mexico pay for it. And one of the threats he made was that he would tax remittances at 100%, which was terrifying for people who relied on their children living in America to send them money. The thought of my lifeline to my parents being able to be cut by a government that does not like me is quite upsetting. And this was the reality being faced by people in El Salvador. Typically, how it worked in El Salvador is you received your remittance from your child living abroad in America, and it was sent to a Western Union. In order to go to the Western Union, many people had to take a bus, perhaps 2 hours from where they lived to a city where the Western Union was, go there and collect their money, usually $100 a month, maybe less. They paid roughly a $25 service charge to Western Union from the front end to the back end to get their money. And then when they walked out of the Western Union, they would typically run into a gang. El Salvador has a relatively high crime rate. It's one of the highest crime rate nations in South America. And what would often happen to these people is they would walk out of their Western Union, and this gang would take $30 from them before they could get on their bus and go home. So these people would end up losing their entire day to come down and get the money, risk bodily harm, and walk away with $55 of the $100 that their child had sent them. There's a saying in the crypto community, Bitcoin fixes this. Oftentimes it's misused. This is a case where it is really true. A person can now receive a remittance from the United States via Bitcoin for an extremely small fee and get it converted to US dollars in the blink of an eye. They can go to a decentralized ATM, they could receive it on their phone. When they receive it on their phone, they're then able to go to a store and pay with their phone. Gangs can't steal that. It's not physical, they can't take it from them. They don't have to go to a centralized location to receive it. They don't need to pay American taxes in order to get it because of the method of sending Bitcoin. Potentially, there could be tax implications in the future. Those are secondary to the fact that these people were being robbed and now they're beyond the reach of these bad actors. The last bit I'll mention here, you know what? I think we spent enough time on financial technology. I just looked over at my clock. So this industry is being rapidly disrupted. We'll move on to real estate. Real estate's an interesting place here. Tokenization represents innovation in all forms of property rights, even in the physical world. This gives us new avenues for investing, trading, exchanging, securing our property in a way that it becomes safer, more secure. I can prove that it belongs to me. At this point, we should probably talk a little bit more about the blockchain and what I've flagged as security. The blockchain is one of the most secure networks ever conceived and enables an entirely new ecosystem of digital property rights. Once something is logged on the blockchain, it becomes harder and harder and harder to undo every 10 minutes as new blocks are built on top of it. What this means is that whatever you secure via the blockchain, and there are multiple blockchains, we'll talk about other ecosystems shortly, but anytime you secure something on this chain, it becomes protected by the rest of the network, which represents a tremendous level of computing power. This level of computing power will be maligned from time to time as wasteful or heavily energy intensive. These are all concerns that will be addressed during the course. It's not something that I take lightly. I consider myself to be an environmentalist. The security provided by a blockchain represents an interesting step forward. Throughout history, when you seek security, you have been forced to go to a specialist in violence to protect you from a different specialist in violence. The best example of this would be hiring a bodyguard to protect you from a burglar. Or in the earlier example I had of sending gold in a stagecoach and looking out for bandits, you would hire the Pinkertons to sit alongside your gold and protect you. And typically, the amount of money required to attack has been less than the amount of money required to defend. In more modern examples, our specialists in violence are actually our government. We're protected by a police force, for example. And we have these laws implemented to defend us, but if we really want to get serious, we hire private security companies, we set up alarm systems on our homes, right? We take steps to protect the property that is ours, and the criminal coming to rob us may just have a crowbar, right? May just be somebody sitting in a Starbucks with a Wi-Fi connection looking to hack us online. The Bitcoin network, the blockchain network, I should say, provides a level of security that is far cheaper for the people using it than it is for the people attacking it. And there is no time in history when such an advancement in security has ever been made. So, in terms of digital security, in protecting your privacy online, we've never seen anything quite like this. The last area I'll mention here is entertainment. This brings us closer to our NFT space, our metaverse, et cetera, et cetera. This revolution in digital ownership that I've just been discussing will impact anything that you currently own in the digital space, and you probably own more things than you think. In particular, young people are very familiar with paying money to get something of value on the internet, whether they're buying cosmetics in a video game itself. How many of you have a Spotify? How many of you pay for Apple Music? How many of you have Netflix? You're exchanging money for access to a digital library. You probably also have piles of DVDs or Blu-rays laying around your house. And the main difference between the digital library you have from Netflix and the DVD you own is that you actually own the DVD, where with Netflix you have a membership to a service. An NFT, a non-fungible token, gives you the ability to take possession of something in digital space and log it on a blockchain just as you could with your money, with your Bitcoin, with your Ethereum, what have you. The entire network knows it is yours. The entire network security protects you, just the same as the lock on your front door protects your DVDs. What this means is an entirely new marketplace for people to be able to create, buy, trade, sell, and invest in property that exists on the internet. And more our lives are being conducted on the internet. It was already happening, but the pandemic has pushed us all here. This space could include music, art, collectibles, games, films. Social media is what I've included here at the end. There's a bunch of interesting experiments being done in forms of ownership, forms of control and moderation within our own online communities. I don't need to tell you that that is a problem that requires a solution. The lack of moderation, the methods of moderation, the means of governorship on social media is only as good as whoever is sitting at the center of it. And these people are always open to criticism, but we have very little recourse against them. Whether these are strikes on YouTube or people getting banned from different services or people not being banned from different services, we as users have very little control of what makes up our discourse on social media, making it unique. When I was at the University of Toronto, I remember really liking the community around me. Part of the reason I liked them is I liked the way that they talked about things and about each other and the respect that they had for one another and one another's identity. I can recall in my first year, I went to a party at a different university that will remain nameless, and it was fun, and the people there were nice, but I did not like the way that they talked to each other. There was a lack of respect, in particular, a massive use of slurs towards not race, but sexual preference. And it kind of shocked me. And I realized that you get the community that you choose. And at the University of Toronto, if you used that word, we ostracized you. It was just as bad as using any other slur. Whereas at this nameless school that I was at, it was perfectly acceptable. And in fact, I looked kind of weird for not doing it. This lack of control of your environment is one of the main problems with social media. It's one of the main things that can be fixed, potentially, by this technology. Whether it allows you to vote, or control, or buy, or leave, or start something new. There are a couple of different companies entering this space. There are also new organic organizations that are arising. If we look at the Reddit model, it's way different than the Facebook model, regardless of how Facebook chooses to rename themselves. There are different actors in this space, and telling them apart and deciding which ones actually align with your values will be deeply important moving into the future as you choose what type of community you want to take part of, and we see if we can take back a little bit of our control in how our lives take place online. There are a couple of different opportunities. I'll move through this kind of quickly because I'm definitely over time. I've fallen into the trap that I labeled earlier. Investment opportunities and participation opportunities are different. Both of them require knowledge of the space. We'll start with investment. The first thing anybody ever hears about with the crypto space is that there are people making and losing vast sums of money. And people who are not in the space often enjoy hearing about the losses more than they do the gains. It's part of the whole fear of missing out. We will have conversations about investment. Again, we will not provide investment advice. I've got a slide coming up where I address this, so I don't want to get too much into it right now. But understanding something and understanding how and why or why not to invest in the space is going to be very important. Financial decisions that we make early in our lives have ripples that echo for the rest of our lives. Mistakes that you make when you are young become scars on your financial portfolio that never truly fade. And successes can put you far ahead of people starting from the same level that you are. Participation is very interesting here. The nature of this space makes it extremely appealing to tech-savvy new participants, especially young people. The creative possibilities here are almost endless. I could not list off all of the things that a person can do. there's a very good chance that the students in my class will have better ideas for what to do in this space than I do, and that's really exciting to me. There are opportunities for young artists, whether they're in music or television or, well, I guess I should probably say drama or theater or art, that have never existed before. We've had a couple of interesting innovations in that space specifically. Things like GoFundMe and Kickstarter allow people to fund projects that they think are cool, and these projects can then use them as proof and go to actual venture capitalists and get real startup material. The bigger this space gets, the better able regular people, and young people in particular, will be able to shape what's being built in their world and can participate in what's being built in their world. Potentially, you could be the person who makes the NFT as opposed to the person who trades the NFT, for example. What we plan to teach. We plan to cover the entire ecosystem with varying degrees of detail. This is going to be led by our students. We're not going to move past anybody. No one's going to get left behind here. We're going to progress alongside student understanding, and we're going to respond to what students find most interesting. If I have a whole classroom full of gamers and that's what they care about, we're going to talk about the opportunity for NFTs in the gaming space, or decentralized applications, or what a video game built in Ethereum could actually look like or could actually be. If I have a bunch of students who don't care about games and they're artists, then that's what we'll talk about instead. At Linked Key, we respond to our students as often as we can. Essentially, I've got two mandates. The first mandate is to the parents. You expect me to teach your kids something? I will be teaching your kids. The second mandate is to my students. They want to enjoy what they're learning. They want to learn what they're interested in. I try to fill both of those mandates as much as possible. The major elements of the crypto ecosystem that we plan to touch on in this course. Bitcoin, I've talked about it. It's the original blockchain. Ethereum, I have barely mentioned up to this point. One of the ways I've heard it described as the world computer. I've also heard it called digital oil. It's similar to Bitcoin in that it can be different things to different people. But essentially, the goal of Ethereum is to do what Bitcoin did for money to applications and online development. Most of the innovations that you hear about in this space are being built on an Ethereum blockchain, not a Bitcoin blockchain. It's very intuitive. It's very user-friendly. It's got a really great user experience. When you get into Bitcoin, it's sort of the same feeling of the people. I don't know if you've seen the new Matrix movie, but they get in there and it's all like, it's a lot of complicated numbers and codes. When you get into Ethereum, it's more like what you expected Bitcoin to be like when you get in there. It feels like the future. It's really easy to start making things and just kind of hit the ground running. Altcoins. Altcoins are innovative, exciting, and extremely volatile. This is where the majority of the sort of degenerate behavior occurs, where people are buying into things that turn out to be scams. We're not going to tell people to be like terrified of altcoins. That's not our goal here. Most of these altcoins are being built on top of Ethereum. If you do not understand Ethereum, you can get into a lot of problems. NFTs are also primarily being built on top of Ethereum. These are non-fungible tokens. They give you a form of true digital ownership. Imagine a deed to a house secured on the internet, right? Something immutable, something that you know belongs to you, something that you could sell to somebody else in just a few moments, something that is very, very difficult to steal or burn or destroy. Next, we have DeFi, decentralized finance. The idea is peer-to-peer financial interaction. Whether you're buying something from somebody, lending money to somebody, you can do this without a large financial institution standing in your way. Again, highly disruptive, very exciting. And finally, we have the Metaverse. The Metaverse is very difficult to summarize because it can be a lot of things. I've labeled it as ambitious and competitive. There's a bit of a land grab going on inside of it. It's unclear whether this will return tremendous value for the people doing it, or if it's taking all the worst parts of the real world and putting it on the internet. This is an exciting area to teach because of how rapidly it's changing and because of how rapidly people in the space are discovering what it can be and the fight that's going on to determine what it will be in the future. And this is in particular an area where students have a lot of opportunity to explore on their own. At this point, I'd like to address safety. Safety will always remain our top priority when educating our students. I've said a lot of exciting things, and some of you may have heard scam, 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 big opportunity to lose all of our money, right? Why would you touch that? Pump and dump, Dogecoin to the moon, whatever. We believe that knowledge is the best defense against scams and other dangers that exist in the digital space. The idea being, when somebody advertises something on TikTok or approaches your student online with a wonderful investing opportunity, if they understand how to actually evaluate the technology being discussed, the investment opportunity being presented, they are far safer than they are right now, where they might just be curious about the space. Scams have grown and changed alongside technology. Before the invention of the phone, people used to come to your door to try to con you. Then they could do it from a phone bank. Now they try to con you via email. The solution is not to keep your kids away from email. The solution is to purchase good antivirus software, use a reputable email server, and teach your kids what emails shouldn't open, right? The Nigerian prince does not actually need $10,000 from you. We all know this, but it takes knowledge in order to look at something like that and know that it is not actually in your best interests. This isn't just about giving away money, it's also about giving away information. The nature of cryptocurrency and this environment prizes privacy. And it is something that we're going to highlight at multiple times during this class. Because as soon as you start owning something digitally, you have something worth stealing digitally. Now, most of you already have something worth stealing digitally. It's your social insurance number, it's your credit card information, it's your banking information, it's your PayPal login, right? There are many, many different vectors by which you can already be attacked. The more you know, the safer that you can be. Finally, we're going to discuss how we plan to teach this class. The course is going to progress from simple concepts to complex applications. The first couple of weeks are probably just going to be a lot of Bitcoin. We're going to be staying in this area until people can grasp it and understand it. We're going to move forward to the blockchain. We're going to make sure that people understand different applications of a blockchain before we move on to more complicated ideas like non-fungible tokens. NFTs are so different from Bitcoin, yet the DNA within them requires you to understand the underlying blockchain technology to do anything useful with them. So that's how we're going to approach them. Different animal, same animal family, right? The difference between a beaver and a zebra. Finally, we have the metaverse. We're going to spend some time on this towards the end of the class once we make sure that all of the other areas are like firmed up, that our students understand and have found their feet within this space and can look at something and say, that's an exciting project, or that looks like a heap of garbage that you're trying to sell me for my, hard-earned digital currency. Each subject is going to be approached on 3 different levels. We have a knowledge-based level that needs to be attained by everybody. We have an investment level. I don't need to be an artist to want to buy and sell NFTs. And then we have participation. I don't need to spend a lot of money to want to become an artist who creates and sells NFTs. These are different things. A lot of times these will go hand in hand. For example, if you're in cryptocurrency already, if you're in Bitcoin, participation looks like running a mining rig and joining a mining pool, or running your own full node so that you can verify the transactions coming in and that you're kind of giving back to the network, helping improve the network security and validate transactions for others. You don't need to own any of Bitcoin to do any of that, but you don't need to do any of that to own Bitcoin. They are different endeavors, investing versus participating. Okay, that about sums up my end of the presentation. I'll take some questions now before Henry will begin his side.
Maybe I'll go first, and then we'll do
Sure.
the Q&A at the end.
All right, sounds good to me.
Okay, so right. I'll try to be going at a faster pace. You know, as I mentioned, I'm trying to be bilingual. So okay, so Matt, can you? Oh, you just stop your screen sharing. Okay, let me share mine. All right, OK，那这样哈，我用中文讲一点，然后用英文讲一点啊，这样的话我们就可以两边都可以都照顾到啊。我们先有个 disclaimer， 就是这个是完全是分享信息啊，然后我们是不构成任何的这种投资和金融方面的建议哈。So real quick disclaimers. So this is for informational, educational purpose only. And it's not for providing investment financial advices. All right, OK， 那我很快想跟大家分享一下我自己的一些经验或者经历了。因为我其实开始接触blockchain Bitcoin 大概2014年就开始，那还算是蛮早的。那当然在这个过程当中，从那个时候到现在这个过程当中。也是在不停的在学习啊，因为这个领域发展的非常非常的快，整个的技术，然后整个的这种思想发展的很快，几乎每一天都有一些新的发展，所以今天也想把一些信息分享给大家啊。So yeah, I'm just trying to quickly go through why Bitcoin, right? What kind of problem they're trying to solve, right? And then blockchain transactions, why altcoins, and then we're going to touch base a little bit on NFT, DeFi, and Metaverse. All right. So the definition of money, this is I got from the MIT professor and the current SEO chair, Gary Gensler. When he delivered a class at MIT, he gave this definition of money, right? So, 那 Gary Gensler 大家知道，现在是美国证监会主席啊，他也是 MIT 的教授啊。2年前他在 MIT 开了一门课叫 Blockchain and Money 啊，主要就是讲这个区块链、货币，然后 Cryptocurrency 啊，就是数字货币。这个比特币当然是其中一个很大块的一个内容。那他在讲到钱或者我们叫货币的定义的时候，我觉得用的这个定义，我个人是很认同了。就是说，他说钱是 the social and economic consensus， 实际上就是一个社会和一个经济的共识啊。我们想一下，我们现在用的加币，那其实就是一张纸啊，不管是纸还是塑料，那就是其实是打印出来的一个印刷品啊。那为什么我们大家都愿意用它？实际上就是大家有一个共识机制在这个地方。那这个共识机制是怎么建立起来的？实际上是一个社会和经济。那再往后面看，实际上是一个国家机器啊，就是一个国家、一个政府、一个法律、一个司法系统、一个立法系统，包括警察跟军队啊，加在一起这样的一个国家机器，在支持这样的一个社会共识啊。那如果我们去看这张图片，大家可能我不知道熟悉不熟悉了啊，就是大概几个月前，美国从阿富汗撤军之后，阿富汗银行出现的一些挤兑的情况。Okay, so this is a picture taken from Afghanistan when the U.S. withdrew the troops. People were lining up there for cash, right? They call cash scripts. 那个时候是很难能拿到钱。所以就是说这样的一种信任啊，我们跟银行、我们跟政府这样的信任，当碰到这种比较极端的情况的时候，就很容易被打破。当然就是说，大家说我们会相信政府，这样的事情在加拿大不太发生。我同意，100% agree. Right? It won't happen. Most likely it won't happen in Canada. But 但是如果你去看比特币它或者说其他的这种数字加密货币，它的背后的机制，它的背书不是靠国家机器，它的背书实际上是靠一个数学的模型 ，right? So whether you want to trust the government more or you want to trust the mathematical algorithm, I mean both are trustworthy, right? Especially for a government like Canada. Both are trustworthy, right? But to me, I think the mathematic algorithm is trustworthy as well, right? I want to share with you, a quick chart in Bitcoin white paper. So this is what got first released when the guy first introduced Bitcoin to the world, right? 那这个是叫白皮书了，就是比特币刚刚出来的时候，他们 release 出来这个白皮书，主要他就讲这个比特币是怎么工作的，它的工作的原理是什么，这个叫 white paper。那我今天可能没有时间说的很具体的，那个如果大家一会儿有兴趣的话，我们可以留在那个 Q&A 的时候，我们去讲多一点这个 chart 啊，就是什么叫 private key， 什么叫 public key， 然后什么叫 signature 啊，那它怎么去确保这些 transaction 是安全的啊，是有保证的 ，right？ So I don't think we have much time to talk into much details in terms of what is private key, what is public key, what's the hash code, how the transaction happens, the how do we ensure the safety and the security of the transaction. We can talk more at the end Q&A if you guys have interest. But let's move on. I want to give you some simple stuff that is easier to understand, right? How many of you have watched this movie, Imitation Game? So this is based on real story, right? This is a scientist, right? Alan Turing. The modern computer was basically invented by him, right? He invented a machine to decrypt the German code. Some people think he is one of the most important contributor. Help the UK defeat the German, right? Because all the German code got decrypted, right? So this is a machine, right? He basically is a computer. 那这个电影实际上就是阿兰图灵的，大家如果看过，我非常建议大家去看这个电影啊，《Imitation Game》。他实际上他是一个数学家，那他发明的这个机器呢，实际上就是去破译德国的密码。那当然最后他被破译到了后来很多后期的这个二战后期，很多德国的这种通讯全部被英国掌握。但是为什么这样的这种我们叫解密或者加密的这样的一个过程，在当年是不够安全啊？就如果像被 Alan Turing 这样的人就可以被破译掉。那为什么像比特币用到的这种 public key 和 private key 这样的机制是不能被破译？那这个我们就稍微讲一下了，就是实际上它的机制是不一样。就是如果我们就知道以前的密码学原理的话，它实际上是有一个密码本，就是实际上就是约定吧。比如说我说是 A， 那在密码本里面可能表现出来的是022，我瞎说啊，不一定是的。那就是说咱们两个人约定好如果你看到我写022，那你就知道我想说是 A 就是咱们俩要约定好。那这个时间长了之后，大家是可以通过各种各样的算法去把你这个给你破译出来所以这就是为什么很多这种情报机构，他们要过一段时间就要换这个密码本因为很容易被破译掉。其实那个时候有一个很大的挑战，就是密码本一换掉之后，这个双方之间怎么去同步这个新的密码本是非常大的挑战。因为很多时候双方其中有一方是在敌后，那你怎么把新的密码本能够给他，这是很大很大的一个挑战。Okay, so yeah, we're talking about how the encryption decryption works, right? Back then, during World War II, they have a encryption decryption guidebook to help people understand, when you say this word, I can interpret it into the real language, basically, right? But in the in the blockchain world, right, they use a mechanism called private key and public key. As you can see in this picture, right, the private key, when you have the private key, right, you can interpret the public key, but not the other way around. For the decryption encryption guidebook, right, there are two ways, right? When I say A, you can interpret it as 022. But when I say 022, you can interpret it back to A, right? There are two ways. But in this cryptocurrency world, there's only one way, right? There's no way you can use public key to interpret the private key. 这个其实就是一个最重要的一个，实际上就是一个密码学机制。那它是通过一个数学算法来实现。就是说我用这个 private key， 我们叫私钥，你可以把这个公钥解出来，但是你用公钥，你永远不能解出这个私钥来啊。所以这个就是确保了它很难会，基本上不能给破解。当然有人说以后量子计算机quantum computer 发明了之后，这个有可能会被破解。有可能，但我不知道。至少以目前的我们的芯片技术和计算机的速度的话，是做不到。OK， this is a typical transaction on the blockchain, right? So Alice tried to send 1 Bitcoin to Bob, right? So when they initiate this message, the 1 Bitcoin along with Bob's address, right? Obviously, they have to encrypt it by using a hash code. Here's the hash code called SHA-256. This is a hash code, right? And once they have the message encrypted, right? This is an encrypted message. The message will be put on the blockchain, right? So this is a verification of Alice transaction. The transaction is on blockchain, right? When Bob receives it, right, he uses his private key to open this message, right? So remember, only his private key can open this message. Why? Because remember, there's only one way, right? So only private key can interpret the public key, not the other way around, right? So when I send the money, let's say I'm Alice, right? When I send my Bitcoin to Bob, so I put Bob's public address in my message, and only this guy, he has his private key, right? Only he can interpret my message. So that's why, you don't want to lose your private key. So private key is basically money, right? If you lose your private key, you lose your money. 这个在过去发生过很多次，有的人把他的这个密钥、私钥丢掉之后，实际上他的这个加密货币就丢掉了啊，因为它永远不能解开了啊。就是刚才我们说的，这个是只有一个通道啊，就是它永远回不去。你丢掉了这个 private key, then you lose all your crypto assets, right? So don't ever, never lose your private keys. That's the most important one on the blockchain. OK, 我昨天前天花了一点点时间，把现在我个人认为比较觉得值得大家关注的一些当然这是我个人意见哈，这种加密货币的品种，我大概列了一下当然这个只是第一页，后面还有一点点也不是很多，大概20-30个吧。根据我自己的一些标准，那给大家做一点点参考。我大概放了几个 column 在这个地方一个就是这个币种第二就是目前的价格，第三是过去一年的叫yield percentage， 就是过去 annual yield percentage， 就是一年它的这个成长的百分比 目前的市值是多少等等啊，这个 circulating 就是目前在市面上流通是多少，然后它一共的这个总的供应量是多少啊？我简单做了一个表啊 ，so I put together a list of cryptos that I think we can spend some time maybe doing some research, right? There are 25 or 30 of them, right? But this is only my list. You can go by your own criteria and maybe create your own list as well, right? In here you can see the first two, obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, the two largest cryptocurrency, right? So far, if you look at the market cap, right, Bitcoin is 800 billion, and Ethereum is close to 400 billion, right? Those are the two, largest cryptocurrencies, in the world by far, right? But if you look at the annual return, Bitcoin only returned 5% for last year, 2021, right? Ethereum returns 149, so 1.5 times, right? From your original investment. And then there's some other coins, right? Solana, it gives you 4,100% return. Cardano, 350 almost, right? And this is the 88. Terra, right, which is called Luna. This one gives you 10,000% return, right? And there are more, and there are more. 这个就是给大家看一下去年的一些我整理出来的一个简单的一个 list。那整个 cryptocurrency 现在有上千种啊，如果不完全统计，我听说的数字好像是4、5千种。我大概按我的这个标准，反正我规划这个归纳出来大概20-30个。大家如果有兴趣，我可以把这个 list 发给你啊，你可以做个参考啊。那我自己认为后面可能我比较有兴趣的，会花更多时间，我会愿意去多看一些的，是我标出来这几个红色的，还有几个蓝色的，蓝色的好像不太明显啊。So those are the ones. I mean, if you look at the ones that in red and in blue, and those are the ones that I'm a bit of interested. I might want to spend a bit more time to do some research, right? 就是说，当我们真的是说想去 research 一个这种 cryptocurrency 的时候，我觉得有2件事情你想要 research。第一件事情就是说它的机制是什么 ，right？ 就我后面也放了一些这种 description， 就它的背后的技术是什么，然后它的机制是什么，包括它的发行机制是什么，比如说它有多少发行量，一共总量是多少，目前在流通的是多少啊？因为这个都是很重要的一些指标。那第二个更重要的就是应用场景是什么，它能在哪些地方可以获得应用啊？这个我觉得是我个人认为是最主要的。Okay, so two things I like to do research on, right? For each cryptos, right? Number one, you need to understand the mechanism behind the scenes, right? The technologies, the circulating volume and the total supply volume, right? The second thing is you want to understand the use case of this crypto, right? So those are the two things I would spend time doing some research on each crypto that I'm interested, right? 那这几个呢，就是我个人可能会有一些兴趣的，比如 Solana、Cardano 啊、Terra、Luca 呀这些啊 ，Avalanche 啊这些啊，那 show you something real surprising 这个可能大家知道，可能大家不知道，可能对这个数字没感觉，其实还是挺吓人的啊。Just want to show you guys something very very interesting. This one is called Shiba Inu, right? For those of you who have pets at home, especially dogs, you must know Shiba, right? I think it's a pretty popular dog. I don't have a dog, but people tell me it's pretty popular, breed. But anyway, this one last year, right? Look at the numbers, 23 million%. Meaning, if you put $5 at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, the $5 will turn to $1 million. But this is a very extreme, right? I don't think this is a rational investment, but it did happen, right? It just happened last year. 就是我个人认为这肯定不是一个理性的一个投资回报了，但是它确实去年就这个币成长了，刚才我们说的是2300万个百分比。OK， 这个我觉得蛮有意思的。这是我昨天还是前2天我看到的一个 Twitter 是 Fidelity Investment。如果大家知道 Fidelity Investment， 实际上就是华尔街的一个投资公司。那他们发了一个这个 report。那这个 report 当中，这是他们后来写的一句话啊，我就不读了。大概意思就是说，他说现在有一些国家已经，他是用这个博弈理论了，就 game theory 来去讲他们的一些看法。他说现在的一些国家已经把比特币当成了这个法定货币啊，那萨尔瓦多啊，然后那其他的一些国家如果想，因为它是个 game theory 嘛，国家跟国家之间也是存在竞争的 ，right？ 那他就是说这些国家，虽然他们不相信这样的，比如说像比特币或者其他一些数字货币这样的投资哈，但是因为是一个博弈的原理，那这些国家 they will be forced to acquire some as a form of insurance， 就是他们也需要去拿一些，哪怕是当成一种 insurance 啊，作为一个国家的这种储备型投资啊。那这个是 Fidelity Investment 他们的一个观点 ，right？ 大家可以读了。In other words, a small cost can be paid today, as hedge compared to a potential much larger cost years in the future。它的意思就是说，那早一点进入的话，你的成本会低很多啊。这个就是它的意思。So yeah, I mean this is written in English. I don't have to elaborate too much. I mean, again, this is the article, right, from Fidelity Investment. So basically, they're talking about more government and even a central bank could buy Bitcoin in 2022, according to Fidelity. Right, the investment firm said a high-stakes game theory is at play that could lead to further adoptions. Right? 那这个是 Fidelity Investment 它的 game theory 啊，就是因为他说有些国家已经进入到这个投资领域里面去了，那很多其他国家就会有可能是被迫要跟进啊，大概是这样的一个 game theory。就像有很多国家他们要做美元储备，那很多其他的国家也要跟进一样啊，大概是这样的一个博弈理论。那我自己看完这个新闻之后，其实我是有一点点想法的。那这个只是我个人的想法啊，给大家参考一下。那今天实际上 Matt 刚才讲了很多是关于我们这个课程设计，我实际上只是给大家分享一下我自己的一些经验跟经历。那这个 Fidelity 这个文章看完之后，其实我有一些读后感啊。The first one is what is investment, right？ 我是觉得他大概想说的意思是说 ，investment 实际上就是你要get ahead of a crowd, to recognize the value of the investment， right？ 那就是说你希望能够在众多的人参与之前，你能够早一点预知，这个就是他的意思。其实我后来我在想，我读完之后我在想，我觉得可能是对的。 因为我们现在去看很多投资哈，哪怕是比如说我们就说是房地产投资了，10年前如果你买一个房子，那今天我觉得像我们密西撒加、奥克维尔或者大多伦多地区，我不知道多少倍哈，这个房地产数字我没有，我估计可能至少2倍应该有，就是10年前的10万块钱，现在肯定是20万啊，如果放在房产，那什么意思？实际上就是你在这个比更多的人再早一点这个 recognize 这个房地产价，或者我们说多伦多的房地产的价值实际上这个就是 get ahead of crowd 这个是我看完 Fidelity 这个，我觉得是对的所以就是说你如果能够早一点 realize 这样的一个 investment opportunity 的话，你的 cost 可以 much lower, right? Than the crowd, right? Then my second thought after I read this article is do you think Bitcoin adoption rate will be getting higher, right? I personally think so, right? I think more and more people will be, starting to adopt Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency, right? Not necessarily Bitcoin, right? Because if you look at last year, right, 2021, the U.S. Security Commission, they approved the first ever Bitcoin ETF on the U.S. stock exchange, right? That's a big sign. That tells me that the institutional investors are here, right? 那对于我来说，就是说，这个 adoption rate 实际上就是大家去用它，或者说去把它当成一种储值的一种工具的这样的数量或者说我们说不管是机构还是个人会越来越多。那美国证监会去年是批准了第一个这个 Bitcoin 的 ETF， 这个大家都知道，所以就是说机构投资者已经开始进入，这个是我们能够看到的一些消息那第三一个就是我这个 Fidelity 这个文章之后告诉我的一个事情，就是其实到了最后我们谈 investment 上实际上是一个比例，实际上是一个相信了，就是你今天你在多伦多你想买一个房子，因为最近房地产很热嘛，就是你想买一个房子，你是基于在一个这个比例的基础上，就是说 you believe the real estate market will keep going higher, right? So the purchase behavior is based on this belief, 对不对？如果你不相信多伦多房地产会继续向上的话，你是不可能今天再去买一个房子或者换一个更大一点的房子。那同样的这个理论就是说，我们去看很多其他的投资，比如说大家去买古董去买什么艺术品我觉得都是这样那一个古董，它一个鼻烟壶，为什么它就值钱？为什么你认为你买了之后，它可以当成一个 store of value， 就是我可以把我的财富由它来当成一个载体，然后过上若干年，这个东西会升很多值，为什么？其实也是一种相信是你的一种比例或者是说那个东西它有一个共识在那个地方，就大家都认为当年清朝的某一个王爷或者谁用过的一个鼻烟壶，它将来会很值钱这个其实上也是一个比例。Okay, NFT really quickly. I think we're running out of time. Really quickly. NFT 是什么 ？NFT 是什么？我自己的给了它一个定义这是我的定义it's a certification mechanism powered by blockchain.
理论方面的东西，它这个就是纯粹让你们买什么币了。
Okay. Yeah, this is an NFT， 就是说它是一个认证机制，这个我们就没有办法展开讲因为时间的关系了那大家如果知道的话，在 1月1号的时候，周杰伦大家都知道，周杰伦发行了一个 NFT，就是这个小熊啊，它叫 Panda Bear，发行了1万个小熊，在40分钟之内售罄啊，就全部卖光。然后卖的时候好像是0.26个以太坊，0.26个Ethereum。今天我刚刚做这个 presentation 的时候，我查了一下，这个是我今天做的截屏啊，14个以太坊啊，就是0.26个以太坊到14个以太坊，这个是那很多人说是不是炒作，是不是泡沫？没错，我认为是炒作，是泡沫，但是这些炒作这些泡沫背后说明了什么？这个可能是我们需要考虑 ，right？ So people think this is a bubble, right? People think this is some people may think this is a Ponzi scheme, right? This is a Ponzi scheme. I think I might agree. I think this is a bubble, right? This is too much. But we're trying to understand what's behind the scenes, right? Why there's a bubble there, right? So do you want to get involved, right? So that's the okay. Can you mute your microphone? Thank you. NFT. Let's talk about the use cases. A few use cases, right? Real quick. Arts. We talk about arts. Music, obviously. Game, right? Some IPs, intellectual properties, right? Like the NBA Top Shots. 我们知道美国的一些职业体育联盟现在在 NFT 领域里面的介入非常的积极啊，像篮球的 NFT 啊，像冰球的 NHL 啊等等啊，很多体育联盟，他们介入的非常的积极。NBA 好像是最早的一个，他们做了很多那种 top shot， 就是某某某，比如说迈克乔丹当年的一个很经典的一个后仰投篮的一个镜头，那一个镜头就是一个数字资产。那这个数字资产，你就可以把它这个，你愿意的话，你可以把它买下来。那买下来之后，那个就是你的，而且是唯一的啊，就是迈克乔丹就那一个比赛的那一个镜头就是我的。那这个是在区块链上是可以认证。刚才我们说的 NFT 是一个认证机制嘛，所以就是这个 NBA 是很早NFT 去年大概是我忘记几月份了啊，他们就开始做这个事情。Yeah, real estate. 很多人说哦 ，real estate 怎么 how the NFT can play in the real estate market? Yeah, it can be like like this, right? When you purchase a house, how do you ensure that the house is owned by you, right? So right now we have a piece of document, right, from a government agency. I forgot the name. So there's a piece of document to certify that you are the owner of this particular house, right? But this is a centralized approach, right? All the information, like ownership information, is stored and managed by that government agency, right? If there's something goes wrong with that agency, and then things will get messed up, right? 所以这个就是我们现在的认证机制啊。我们以前在国内叫房产局啊，我们所有的这些房产证啊，都是房产局来管理啊。那在 NFT 或者在 blockchain 上，其实这个更容易管理，就是它实际上就是用这个刚才我们讲的用这个区块链的技术或者 NFT 的技术来帮助你做这种认证啊。当然就是大家现在可能觉得哇，那个是不是更不可靠、更不靠谱？我怎么敢相信呢？我还是敢相信政府多一点点啊。但是还是那句话，就是你愿意相信人多一点点，还是愿意相信技术多一点点啊？那有的时候我们对技术的相信没有那么大，那个 conviction 没有那么高，实际上是因为你对那个技术还不太了解啊，这个可能是原因之一了。这就为什么刚才 Matt 也讲到是说you need to learn to understand。就是其实最好的克服这种恐惧或者克服这种不确定性的方法是学习，把我们自己变得更加的武装，用更多的知识来武装我们啊。 所以我们很容易对很多事情能做更多的这种有效的判断啊，我们叫 informative decision 那 Metaverse 当然是一个更这个宏大的一个对 NFT 来说的一个应用场景那后面我们就稍微说两句 Metaverse。那说 Metaverse 之前，这个我不知道大家有多少人有这个Oculus 这个实际上就是一个虚拟现实头盔，大家可能都见过了，其实就是戴在头上。我用这个东西做什么？我跟大家说，watch Netflix， 因为它上面有一个 Netflix 的一个应用，然后呢，我带上它，然后我看电影的时候呢，基本上很像我在电影院的感觉就它做的蛮像。当然现在很多人认为这个还有很多的这个改进的空间，我100%同意，因为这个其实是我们可以认为它是第一代或第二代的这个虚拟现实产品，那它还有很多地方不完善，比如说戴在头上不是很舒服然后也有点重然后这个头带勒着也觉得反正有的时候也容易出汗，反正夏天的时候，但是我们要相信技术革新了。就像我们第一代手机出来，那个时候我们用的那种大砖头和今天的手机是不能比的，对不对？所以我们相信这种技术的进步了。我们也知道现在很多公司像微软苹果他们都在开发这个虚拟现实我相信他们会出来更好的产品。Yeah, this is the one that from Oculus, basically Facebook, right? I use this one to watch Netflix because it makes me feel that I'm in a movie theater. So this is how I use it, right? It's not super comfortable, right? But I think they're going to make this one better, right? I think they're going to make this one better. Yeah. So Metaverse, I think it's a virtual space, basically, right? Are we not familiar with virtual space? I don't think so. I think we're very familiar with virtual space. Internet is a virtual space, right? 所以其实我们对这种虚拟空间，很多人说哇，这个太玄了，这什么叫元宇宙？其实一点都不玄，它就是个虚拟空间。那我们的互联网其实也是个虚拟空间很多互联网其实就是个虚拟空间。那在元宇宙当中，它有什么样的应用？我觉得这个现在其实就是一个发展的过程。很多人说互联网发展用了35年的时间，然后以现在的科技的这个摩尔定律元宇宙大概应该是10倍的速度换句话说，就是3到4年之内，可能我们就能够看到一个元宇宙的雏形。我个人比较乐观我觉得，当然现在是一个 baby step， 就是现在是一个这个刚刚提出来的一些概念，然后有一点点雏形，像我刚才这个拿的这个 Oculus 但是我觉得大概在3年左右的时间，可能我们看到一些真正的应用，或者说看到这个行业在慢慢出现一些雏形这是我个人的判断。So yeah, Metaverse, people call this, a new generation of technology revolution, right? If we take a look at the internet revolution or evolution, it took about 35 years, right, from the start to now. And most people say, hey, the metaverse evolution speed would be tenfold. So if you take that into consideration, that tells me that it's going to take us 3 to 4 years before we can see a commercialized industry in metaverse, right? 那2个东西我觉得很重要一个是 technology， 刚才我们说的是一个技术的发展，另外一个呢就是这个在 blockchain， 因为 metaverse 有很多东西是要建立在区块链的基础上，所以一些区块链的一些技术上的一些突破So those are the two things I think it's important if we want to see a real metaverse breakthrough. OK, DeFi 非常非常快的说一下，这个叫什么？叫 decentralized finance， 就是说我们现在用的这些投资啊、理财啊，很多我们其实都是 centralized， 对不对？比如说我们把钱放到银行、TD 银行、CIBC 等等，然后他给我们一个利息，然后我们如果需要借钱了，借 mortgage， 然后找银行借，他也给我们一个借款利息等等。那这个是 centralized finance。那 decentralized finance 呢，实际上就是更多的是分布式。你不是跟这些银行在打交道，实际上是我们点对点我不知道大家以前看没看过这种 peer to peer 的那种叫什么 video sharing 就是我有一个电影放到我的电脑上，其实你在远端通过互联网，你也可以看我这个电影那实际上就是我们两个点对点，实际上虽然我们两个人不认识我们是通过互联网来去共享这些内容。那 decentralized finance 或者 DeFi 是同样的道理就是我们虽然不认识，但是我们是通过 blockchain， 通过区块链把我们连接在一起那你可能是借方，我可能是贷方，然后我们就可以形成一个共识机制那这样的共识机制有什么好处？最大的好处实际上就是双方的这种利息或者借贷成本，当然对贷方是它的收益都会比我们现在用的这种叫 centralized 这种 finance 要好很多So yeah, this is a decentralized finance, meaning it's like a peer-to-peer, right? The two sides may not know each other, right? Most likely they don't know each other, but they can interact through blockchain, right? So one can lend money, the other one can borrow money, with both with a better rate, right? 那这个就是我随便做了几个截屏给大家看一看，这个是在一个 Avalanche 的一个 blockchain 上他们大概就能做到 9.77这个是如果你有当然不是 fiat money 不是我们的加币美元就是你的比如说你的这个 Avalanche 这个 coin 你放在那边就是 9.77利息了。我听说有人把81000块钱放在了一个这种 decentralized 这种 finance 这样的一个网站了，它每天可以产生900块钱的这个 return 那相当于每年多少呢？405%。当然这个只是我听说了我可能会做更多的 research 如果有兴趣的话，我们可以再花另外一个时间再去交流这个事情但是我直到我自己能够把它 research 清楚之前我会选择至少我会选择暂时先不相信那因为你不知道它背后是什么很多时候都是high return 伴随着 high risk所以这个就是我们要做所有这些东西之前，我们要做大量的这种 research， right? So this is another one. I took some screenshots, right? If you deposit your Bitcoin in this wallet, they give you 6.2%, annual return, right? If you deposit US dollar, but this is a digital US dollar, right? Called USDC, they give you 8.5%, right? This is obviously much higher than the bank rate, right? All right, so last message. I know this is pretty new, pretty disrupted, right? To many people, right? Maybe pretty scary as well. But my message to you is to learn to understand, right? To learn to make judgments, right? For our children, right? For our students, we should encourage them to learn to lead because they are going to be the leader for tomorrow, right? So we're getting old, right? We're fading away. the young guys, they are going to be the leader for tomorrow, right? So they're gonna learn this, and they're gonna, learn to understand. They're gonna learn this, to lead us in tomorrow, right? Into tomorrow. All right, so that's everything that I want to share with you guys. It's a bit long. Let's get some Q&As. OK， 有没有问题？我们可以这个你可以敲在我们的对话框里面，或者turn on your microphone and ask. Sunny asks, how or where do you get Bitcoin cryptocurrency? Matt, you want to get this question?
Yep. So, good place to start. You would be looking for an exchange. There are a couple of different exchanges available. The largest one is Coinbase. It's not my exchange of choice, but it is just fine for a beginner. You're going to need to set up an account yourself. That would require you to provide some information. For me, I provided them with a picture of my passport. You also have to show a picture of your face. Henry, do you remember? It's like you have to move your phone around your face. It's got to be three-dimensional, if I remember correctly. You got to prove that it's really you, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of good protections that exist on Coinbase. And this is going to give you access to a whole bunch of different coins that you can go purchase. There's going to be a slight transaction fee. They have a wallet, which I don't know if Henry talked about, but it's a means by which you can take custody of the coins. They will give you a custody solution, meaning that essentially they'll hold your coins for you, and you can purchase large portions of the infrastructure. So that'd be a good place to start. There's a couple of other exchanges that I might recommend specifically for Canadians. A lot of exchanges don't really treat the Canadian dollar that nicely. You have to go through and pay a couple of conversion fees and that kind of thing. So any exchange that enables you to buy using Canadian dollars is a good place to start. I thought you have to mine for it. So other people have already mined for it, and then you can buy it from them, essentially. Well, we are definitely going to be explaining that in the class. Mining is a good way to understand it as somebody new to the space. Once you're in the space, the concept of mining is a little bit more complicated than that. But essentially, every 10 minutes, somebody gets 6.25 new Bitcoin. And they can either keep it or they can sell it on an exchange. Many of the exchanges run their own miners and move their own transactions. So odds are if you're buying from Coinbase, you're either buying from somebody that Coinbase has paired you up with who is selling, or Coinbase themselves. What about the cores? Let's see. We've got a couple of them coming in here.
Okay. Something real quick. Just want to share. I forgot to share.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this is my secret message for for everybody here tonight. And I mean, for those of you who stay this late, you might find this one well worth the time that you stay in this one. One of the reasons why I encourage our students to learn this, right? One is because this is a new technology, right? Not thinking about the investment, making money, or that kind of stuff, right? It's not I don't care, but I care less, right? I care more about learning the technology, the way, the way of thinking behind the scenes, right? The message I wanna deliver to you guys is that, for the young kids, right, the young students, I mean, for our demographics, the high school or middle school students, right? If they wanna be competitive for their application, university application, right? Because university application is the most important milestone for middle school and high school students, right? For sure, right? So if they want to be more competitive in the university application, obviously you have to have a very good school grade, right? That's no doubt, right? You have to have that one. But if you want to apply the top-notch top-notch, schools in the world. For example, the Ivy League in the U.S. Other than the perfect school grades, you have to have some, outside of a school activities and achievements, right? To make yourself stand out, right? We call big spike. I think cryptocurrency could be a blue ocean in that regards, right? Meaning there are much less people in this space, right? There are much less people understand this space, right? And they're more likely for you to succeed, right? And from the university application admission officer's perspective, right? All the university admission officers, they like innovations, right? They like being entrepreneurship, right? I think this is a strategy maybe worth consideration, right? For those of you who wanna pursue the top-notch undergraduate colleges, right? 我用中文再说一遍啊，就是我觉得其实有一个很重要的一点，这个一开始我也没有讲了，就是我觉得这个留到最后了，就是我们的孩子如果将来在他的大学申请，我们讲的比较功利啊，坦白讲，就是说他们需要把自己变得非常非常有竞争力啊，除了他的学校的功课要做得很好之外，那他在校外部分的这种我们叫 engagement 或者说 achievement， 他在校外的这些做的这些事情，也要让他变得非常有竞争力啊。那现在有很多事情，因为大家都变成 stereotype， 比如说piano， 每个人都弹琴，那你说我 piano 弹得非常非常好，那我有没有可能给我加分？概率不是很大，就是因为太多人做这件事情啊，太多人做这件事情。但是像 crypto， 它是一个 innovation， 它是个 technology innovation， 本身大学他们就很喜欢这样的这种技术这样的革新。那因为这个领域从事的人会很少啊，真正懂这个领域的人也很少。那如果你能在这个里面做出一点点的小的成绩，有一点点的小的故事，我都觉得你很容易就相对来讲，你很容易能够 stand out 出来啊，就在这个竞争当中啊，这个给大家最后一点点的我个人的一个，因为那天我也突然间跟我另外一个朋友在讨论这个 crypto 的时候，其实我想到了这一点哈，今天跟大家分享一下。OK， back to the Q&A. Curiously, where did you get the resource of the various types of cryptocurrencies? 这个 resource 很多啊，基本上我今天 share 给大家的都是 public information, right? Everything is public information. You know, there's a website called Coinbase, right? Matt just mentioned, right? It's the biggest crypto exchange in the US, could be in the world, right? It's a public company. On Coinbase, there are a lot of information about the cryptos, right? The name, may not be tradable on Coinbase, but they do have a lot of information about those cryptos, right? There are other websites like CoinDesk. There are a bunch of other websites. Right? You can find those information in those websites. Yeah, it's pretty easy to find. Information is not hard to find, but the knowledge is not easy to obtain. Yeah. There's a difference, right, Matt? You agree? There's a difference between information and knowledge. Right? Information is easy to find, but knowledge is not that easy. Right? You have to get the information analyze it, and try to understand it, absorb the information, and then becomes your own knowledge, right? There's a process.
Yeah, Henry and I spent a lot of time learning about crypto separate from one another. I feel like it was a little over a year ago now, I think, when I brought up the concept of an NFT possibly being integrated into a class. And we had conversations like I don't know, I have a very fond memory of this conversation. Where I'm like, have you ever heard of this? And he's like, yes, have you heard of this? And we kind of like quietly hinted at cryptocurrency back and forth because some people think it's crazy and it's a bubble and it's a waste of information, you know? And so we didn't know if he was cool. Like I didn't know if he was into it or not. And so after that conversation, yeah, suddenly we could pool our knowledge and share information that we knew about it. And, now we'll send each other new articles and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, it was hundreds of hours of diving through podcasts and videos and essays because the whole thing is decentralized. So you can read the white paper. I'm not a mathematician, so I had a lot of difficulty with the white paper. There's whole sections where Satoshi just goes full math, and it was very, very hard for me. And so I had to go through different avenues to try to understand more. But you can dive through the technological aspects or how it can be used as an investing vehicle. For me, I came to it the way a lot of people do. I wanted to make money. And so I started getting good returns. And the better I did in it, the more I wanted to learn about it. And they refer to it as number go up technology. So as the number continues to go up, people become more interested. They want to learn more about it. And some people stick around, not just because they're making money with it, but because it's innovative and exciting and interesting. And there's potential for this technology to do good things in a lot of areas. And that's the sort of thing that I get really excited about, that I'm really interested in. Anytime I hear about it, right now, Kazakhstan is going through a crackdown, right? Last year it was Belarus. Every time you hear about something like this, I saw Henry have the slide up of the bank run in Afghanistan, right? Every time you see a situation like that, where you see something where innovative technology could help, regular people just save money to be able to retire or open a business or send a kid to school. That's so empowering. That's so interesting to me, especially when we're talking about a use case for a person who is denied access to things that I have always taken for granted here in Canada. So yeah, as far as where I acquired this information, I also really wanted to not lose money. So I'm very careful before I invest in anything. In particular, you can get embarrassed very publicly if you start telling the people around you, oh my God, I've heard of the greatest investment. And then the thing goes to zero and now everybody talks about it at the family reunion and whatnot. Like you have to be very sure before you go in, especially on something that people consider to be strange. Kathy has a question. She wants your spreadsheet. Sorry, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, just real quick. I think one of the approach that people can consider to take, I think is a rational or prudent. So if you wanna get a bit of exposure in crypto, right? And then at the same time try to minimize your risk. So you could consider take a small portion of your investment portfolio into Bitcoin. Not Bitcoin, sorry, crypto, right? It doesn't have to be Bitcoin. Some, it can be other stuff. I mean, people sometimes they ask me, hey, what do you think is the is the percentage, right? For in terms of my my crypto exposure, right? So I would say maybe 2%, just a small portion, just like you go and buy an insurance, right? So if you book a vacation, so you spend, I don't know, maybe $2,000, you book a Mexico vacation, but all of a sudden the COVID pandemic hit, right? You cannot go, and then the $2,000 will be become it may become non-refundable if you didn't buy the insurance, right? So if you buy an insurance, let's say the insurance costs you $100, right? Yes, you pay a actual $100, But if there's anything happen, you can get your $2,000 back, right? So that's the insurance. I think it's the same concept, right? So you use a small portion of your investment portfolio in the cryptocurrency, crypto. If there anything happens, right? Let's say the Shiba, right? 23 million%. Wow, you can retire right away, right? But in the extreme case, the crypto goes to zero, you only lose 2%, right? I mean, it's just like you lose your insurance, right? But if there's anything happens, wow, it's
You're
a
glad you bought it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a hedging strategy to me, right? So if you're not 100% comfortable, putting a lot of your stuff in the crypto investment, just try to consider put a small portion in there, right? As an insurance, as a hedge.
Olive asked for crypto investing stories, and I actually have one that I'll share briefly. It does relate to SHIB. I had a conversation about investments with my younger brother, and he's not really into investing. I kind of worry about him because I don't know how he's going to make enough money to retire. So I've been trying to encourage him, usually just to get into something safe, okay? Buy a little bit of Apple, buy an index fund, open a tax-free savings account. And he comes back to me with, "You're going to be really happy. I just started investing." And I'm like, "That's amazing. What did you buy?" And he's like, "SHIB." That's what he comes to me with. I've been teaching him about the storeholder value of Bitcoin and all this great stuff. And he comes to me and says he's bought SHIB. And I don't judge him. That's fine. He's doing a thing. He's investing. I wanted to say, good luck to you or don't invest more or something like that. But I didn't. I held back because that's generally my policy. And that weekend, the thing tripled in value. And suddenly I couldn't tell him anything else because now he's a genius, right? Now he knows everything there is to know about investing because he got 300% gains in 4 days. So it really fit though, because my younger brother is quite a lucky person. It seems like whatever he's buying, you should be buying it right behind him because the universe just kind of lays down in front of him wherever he goes. That's my favorite crypto investing story. The time that I did not tell my brother to invest in SHIB, he did it anyway, and he made a bunch of money. It went really, really well for him.
I think you skipped a question, Matt.
Yes.
The question from Sophie. What about the course? How long does it take? And
Good.
when
yes,
to
I
start?
wanted to answer this one. Okay, so currently our course is set up for 16 weeks. We have plans to continue expanding this ecosystem, but right now this is what we're starting with. We got 1 semester. We're going to go through this. Henry, our start date, I don't have it handy. I can pull it up unless you have it right now.
Sorry,
just
which
open
one?
my schedule. According to my calendar.
It's going to start the first week of February.
Yeah, I'm seeing February 9th as the first day.
Yep.
Wednesday, 7/15, February 9th, and then we run 16 weeks. There should be no holiday Wednesdays. There might be a spring break on March 16th. At least that's how it's scheduled right now. Last year, you'll recall, March break became April break. So we think there will be a break week. We don't know for sure. Okay. What's the government support cryptocurrency? Okay, so Kathy, that's an interesting question. I wanted to get your other question answered. Kathy wanted to know if she can have your spreadsheet with your big list of cryptocurrencies.
Yes, yeah, you can, of course. I created for for you guys basically. I want to share those information with you. Send an email.
I was interested to see Loop Ring on that list. That's a deep cut. That's a very interesting coin to have on there, Henry.
Yeah, I discover a lot of hidden gems.
Yeah, they're very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, send us an email or maybe send us a WeChat with your email address, and we can share the my spreadsheet. We can also share the video recording as well if you want. Okay, that's not a problem.
So,
all right.
Gavin wants to know if students will be actually investing. So we've experimented with a little bit of this. If you've taken our finance class, we've either paid you Bitcoin or very soon we're going to pay you some Bitcoin. We've also handed out some Dogecoin as a prize for a recent public speaking competition. So it's something that we're moving towards. There are tax implications with actually trading in class. We also looked at like buying stocks as a class. We might be able to do some paper trading for this semester, but as far as actually engaging in NFTs, it's something I'm really excited for. This semester, I'd be very surprised if we're able to actually implement that. What are your thoughts on that, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, we can do some paper trade for sure.
For sure.
And then maybe we can, show the student how to, set up a wallet. What kind of exchange. Yeah, we can do some, simulations, right? But in terms of getting real money involved, well, that has to be a decision between the student and
Yes.
parents, right? Once again, we're not trying to provide any kinds of financial or investment advice. This is a purely educational course, right?
Yeah,
we're trying to encourage students, to learn, especially to learn new stuff, right? Technology, the way the other people think, what kind of problem they're trying to solve, and then we're trying to encourage students to think independently and to think critical, right? And try to make their own judgment, right? Try to make their own decisions.
I have some fun ideas involving NFTs, especially ones that are like not expensive. Gas fees may end up being a problem, but I had a concept of, you know how classrooms used to have a class pet, and you could send the class pet home with different students for different weekend. They could look after it. We could do something like that with the NFT and see if one of my students loses it or kills it. If we're dealing with something that costs about $5, that could be a lot of fun. There's a lot of potential for a space like this to do a lot of hands-on technology, or at least very close to that, right? To get people very close to the technology and doing things in a risk minimized fashion.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to quickly go through all the questions.
I'll talk for the whole night if you let me.
No. I gotta go eat dinner. There's a question from Sunny. Why are cryptocurrencies illegal in some countries? And then I saw there's a response. Why are POS illegal in some countries? Matt, do you want to address this one? I'll give you a quick response on this one. I think it really depends on country to country, right? Some countries, they make some, decisions based on their political stance, and they worry about, for example, I don't want to name a country, right? They don't want people to ship their assets out of the country, right? Because if you use fiat, they can basically control it, right? Because fiat has to be through the central bank, right? But if you use crypto, they lose their control, and they don't want that happen. That's basically why they made it illegal. I think it's politics.
Partially, yes. As Henry points out, it depends on the country. I'll name some countries. Turkey. Turkey's an interesting case study on this one because Turkey's been moving closer and closer to banning it, removing it from the control of their citizens. Turkey currently has an inflation problem. They also have a dictator problem. Recep Erdogan has been increasing his power every single year. He's already fought off a coup. He's been there far longer than a democratically elected leader should be. Turkey has gone from one of the most democratic countries in the region to one of the least democratic countries in the region. Their democracy and their freedom is in peril. What is also happening is that he has replaced 4 central bankers in 3 years, and inflation continues to be going through the roof. When a country is experiencing high inflation, as we see in countries such as Argentina, or we had seen in the past, we've got the Germany hyperinflation, for example, before they get to that breaking point, the country experiences something called capital flight, which is where people try to save their life savings by getting it out of the currency. If the currency is getting 14% worse per year, your purchasing power is being halved at a startling rate. So you need to start buying anything that's not the currency. This could be real estate. This could be gold. This could be, shares in a company, especially one that doesn't trade in, say, the Turkish lira, or this could be a cryptocurrency. And especially because you can do it from your phone, cryptocurrencies have been an excellent avenue of capital flight. So when a country is worried that you are not valuing their currency, they will start stopping you from buying other things. These countries will also do things like limit the amount of real estate a household is allowed to buy, or perhaps revoke someone's ability to own precious metals. Bitcoin
Yep.
is almost proven as a good inflation hedge by the fact that countries experiencing high inflation don't want you to buy it.
Yep. So question from Gavin, I think you addressed this one, Matt. Will students be actually practicing investing in crypto during the course? Yeah, but we talk about this one. So it's mostly paper trade, right? Simulation. We don't want the student to touch the real money before get the consent from the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, is there any connection between cryptocurrency and traditional financial and economy principles? This is a good question, also a big question, right? We need another 2 hours discussion to address this one. But I can
take a quick shot.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick one. I think I'm hoping there will be some more connection between the crypto and the conventional banking system, right? But one thing I am expecting, and I can see it's coming, is regulation, right? So regulation to me is a good thing, right? It's when the industry gets more regulated, it's going to be more. It's going to be healthier, going forward. So that'll be my interpretation of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Regulation would help prevent things like Squid Game token, which was a fairly obvious scam, but a scam nonetheless that occurred over the summer, where somebody creates a new crypto token that's existed for all of 12 hours. They sell a whole bunch of it. They bring a whole bunch of people in. This is almost the worst side effect of Dogecoin, right? The idea that, it's a community, it's a joke, it's a meme, it's a society. And then it turns out it wasn't really a society. It was just somebody looking to rob you. And they liquidate all their coins overnight and they walk away with a couple $1 million. Regulation should stop things like that from happening. That's not freedom. That's not innovation. That's crime. That's taking advantage of people who don't know what they're doing in the space. So I can understand why people in the space have pushback to regulation. I can understand that especially some of the earliest adopters of cryptocurrency have a sort of inherent fear of government overreach. But at the same time, those people are usually the loudest people when it comes to decrying scams. We should have freedom in a marketplace, but at the same time, if someone is selling snake oil, I should be allowed to stand next to him and say that this is a scam, and someone should come over and stop him from conning people. As far as it moving with traditional finance, Bitcoin has often performed as a completely uncorrelated asset. There are times when it moves with the market during, say, a liquidity crunch. My main take on this is that as there is more and more overlap between crypto investors and traditional finance investors, crypto will move more and more like traditional finance, because things that affect those investors will cause them to move their whole portfolio, including their Bitcoin. If they decide to de-risk and they consider crypto to be risky, then crypto will move with risk on assets. If they want to increase their inflation hedge and they consider Bitcoin to be an inflation hedge, then it will move with the inflation hedges. So as there's more overlap in the consumer base, you'll see more overlap with movement.
Okay, question from Olive. China is pushing for broader use of digital currency. I think there's a difference between that digital currency and cryptocurrency. There's a major difference. There are major differences. I can tell you two, right off my bag. Number one, the digital currency, the one that you talk about, that China is pushing, it's a centralized currency, right? This is the same as RMB, right? 跟人民币没有区别啊，它也是一个中央，实际上就是中央银行控制 啊，只不过就是一个是印刷，一个是电子啊so that's first difference. The second difference is they're not using blockchain, right? They're not using crypto 这个我们刚才说的这个encryption, right? So the technology or the mechanism behind it's different, right? So yeah, that's the two those are the two I can think of. Anything to add, Matt?
Central bank-backed digital currencies will come up during the curriculum. The Canadian Central Bank is interested in developing one. I believe it's MIT who's writing a paper on one for the Federal Reserve. This is the direction we're all moving. It'll be relatively seamless for most people. As Henry points out, these are not going to be cryptocurrencies. They're not going to be moving on a blockchain. You will have a wallet. You will take custody of your coins. As Henry points out, they're centralized. So your coins could be canceled or confiscated or doubled in value or halved in value. There are some really great things that central banks could do here, and there's some very scary things that central banks could do here.
Yeah.
The fact is they'll have more control over your money. And most of the arguments that I hear against crypto sound like arguments against cash. So for example, they're worried about the anonymity, or they're worried about the ability for somebody to use it for crime. I don't do crime, but if I did, I would do it in paper money. I wouldn't do it in a cryptocurrency. And that sort of thing could be stomped out with a fully digitized currency, and there will be an appetite for it. As I mentioned, I even talked to a cashier today when I was at Shoppers. Pretty soon, I'm not even going to have to use a credit card, right? I'll just be able to interface directly with my central bank and use the tokens that Henry paid me for teaching a class, and the tokens will just flow around during our infrastructure. So central bank digital currencies are coming. Some of them could be surveillance tokens. Some of them could potentially be like anti-poverty tokens. We could have some really nice things. Governments are always trying to run things like food stamp programs, for example. And it's a token, more or less, that you can exchange for certain things. You can use this to buy food. You can't use this to buy a Maserati. They could do the exact same thing with your central bank digital token. You could get a specifically colored token or tagged token, and you could spend it at certain locations. If the bank wants to encourage you to spend more, they can make your tokens expire after 3 months, right? Forcing you into the market to buy things. There's a lot of tools that they could build into this. And I, for one, do want the ability to just not deal with it if I could. The ability to just tell my boss, actually, I don't want this token that's going to expire in 3 months. Please pay me in something else. And this is what cryptocurrency would continue to enable you to do. Just the last point on banning. The decentralized nature of most cryptocurrencies, because some of them are better than others when it comes to centralization, means that it is incredibly difficult for a country to actually make their people stop using it. They can make it illegal to use it, much in the way that they can make it illegal to smoke a cigarette or drive over the speed limit. There needs to be a certain degree of enforcement. Enforcement is very difficult on the internet. It's illegal to pirate movies in Canada. Nobody ever goes to jail for pirating movies in Canada, right? There are things that will be technically illegal, but functionally still occurring. And exchanges on cryptocurrency still are occurring in countries where it's illegal to own or buy, et cetera, et cetera. So primarily what we have seen is that countries are able to ban themselves from participating in the network and to try to criminalize other people participating in the network, but ultimately they will find it very difficult to actually stop people from using it.
Yep. Okay. So question from Cassie.
If you want to go eat, you can go eat, and I can, like, you can make me host, and you can go have dinner. I've already eaten.
Okay. So question from Cassie: whether the government supported cryptocurrency, the cryptocurrency is supported to evolve on technology control. Obviously, they want to control, right? If they adopt cryptocurrency, they will lose control, right? Because cryptocurrency is decentralized on blockchain, and I mean the government doesn't have any control on this, right? When people tell me that, hey, I'm scared of buying or using a cryptocurrency on blockchain, here could be a response. So you should be more scared of using a centralized digital currency, because all your information, all your spending, all your investment, everything around that digital currency is controlled, and everything is, exposed, right? Yeah, simple answer to this one is they want to control. All right. Any prediction?
Yeah, we want a price target.
Any prediction about cryptocurrency this year? That's a I don't want to make any prediction. What about you, Matt?
I think the price chart will move to the right. That'll probably happen. Maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll go down, but it'll definitely go to the right. I have no target. I have no idea.
So, Melissa, will cryptocurrency encourage more ransom-based cyber attacks worldwide? You want to take on this one, Matt?
Yeah, I'm interested in this question. So I had mentioned like stagecoach robberies earlier, and the idea is like I'm moving gold to the Wild West, so people want to steal my gold from the carriage. The problem with that wasn't gold, right? We didn't sit there and go, oh man, if only we didn't have gold, all these bandits wouldn't be here. Gold encourages crime. Gold doesn't encourage crime. Need encourages crime, right? Somebody needs money, so they start doing crime. The main reason why ransomware attacks are so successful right now has very little to do with cryptocurrency. Yes, it makes it easier for them to get paid. In the past, people have been scammed, conned, etc. online, and they pay them with bank drafts and e-transfers and credit card transfers, etc., etc. Crypto is slightly cleaner. The guy who did the Colonial Pipeline hack managed to get himself caught by the FBI when he was trying to sell his cryptocurrency in the United States. So it was kind of a crime of opportunity more than anything else. The reason why ransomware is on the rise is because we have had a generational failure to invest in increased cybersecurity. And this is part of what the blockchain is actually going to provide. More people are caring more about securing their online identity, their online transactions. The fact that a gas pipeline was so horrendously exposed that some person who didn't even know how to effectively sell his crypto without getting arrested by the FBI was able to take control over, I think it was just the payments plan, but either way, was able to render helpless a massive piece of the American infrastructure, shows you a weakness in their cybersecurity. My response is, yeah, maybe it's a little bit easier to get the money. Maybe it makes people a little bit more willing to do it. But ultimately, what encourages crime is the opportunity to do the crime more than the quality of money they're receiving.
All right, so last question. Crypto advocates the anarchism, but who will win? Government still looks unbeatable. Okay, this is basically a debate topic. Yeah. Well, I don't. Well, there maybe certain people do. I don't think the majority of the crypto industry advocates anarchism.
Yeah.
I think we are calling for regulations. Right? We're calling for more government regulations that will ensure a healthier development for the industry. Right.
I have every interest in paying my taxes. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, there are always some, we call bad potatoes or tomatoes, whatever. Yeah. I mean, but I don't think the majority, advocating that. Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with this. Like I said, I plan to pay my taxes. I like my country. I, by and large, trust my government to do most things. Maybe they'll implement something badly, but I don't think they're out to get me. I don't think they're planning to hurt me. I don't think they're planning on seizing my cryptocurrency anytime soon. I was discussing more of a, when you're talking about something like crypto, when you're talking about something like Bitcoin, the places that people go when they're trying to imagine security threats. The reason you're talking about the threat of a nation state attacking, because a private company couldn't do it, Elon Musk couldn't do it, the richest person in the world couldn't stop it. So literally the only threats remaining to a network as large as Bitcoin are world governments, and most of the world governments are still not strong enough to do it either. So we're talking about essentially the United States and China being the only countries with the resources to actually attempt to stop something like this. I don't happen to live in either of those countries. So yeah, when we go down the long rabbit hole of I'm memorizing my seed phrase and smashing my wallet and fleeing to another country, I don't actually think we're going to do that. And the concept of fighting your own government over something like this, I don't plan to leave this country. Were my government to initiate bans on this stuff, it's very likely that I would just sell it and that I would continue to live here. But the point that I was hoping to make is that when an authoritarian government steps in and tries to ban their people from using it, it's not killing the network. I am sad for the people in that country who are suffering under that regime, and I hope for a better life for those people. But when it comes to could India kill cryptocurrency, could China kill cryptocurrency, my response would be even if they teamed up together and unlikely, but added the United States to their cabal, it would still not succeed, which is important if you're building an investing thesis, right? Because part of the plan is what could kill this, what could drive this to zero.
Yep. All right. So
and what most of us can find, the main thing, right, Henry, you might agree with this, is like what could actually go ahead. I think we just lagged.
No,
Can you hear me?
I didn't talk. No, I didn't talk.
Okay. So
not me.
Really the only world that I can see it going to zero is if the world were able to turn off the internet. And even then, we'd still have some people trying to trade Bitcoin with radios. Like, they're a very innovative group, and they really care a lot about this stuff. So the layer of developers, the layer of these, like, die-hard Bitcoin hodlers, they're thinking about this stuff all the time. And yeah, they're probably saying crazy stuff about it on the internet. And for a lot of people, it's kind of their first encounter is meeting one of these people and going, oh, they're all crazy. Yeah, okay, this is the thing for crazy people, right? Because you get all sorts in investment.
All right. Okay. Final message, Matt, for our audience. 30 seconds before we wrap this up. Final message.
Well, I really enjoyed this extended conversation. I had actually planned like a little story I was going to tell you about a use case involving the gaming industry to buy you time to come up with questions, but we didn't need that at all. I'm really looking forward to teaching this class. I think that we can do a lot of good by spreading just knowledge and understanding of something that to a lot of people is just sort of a black box that's oddly menacing, especially when there are so many people in traditional finance who have been wrong about this for a decade, still trying to explain why eventually they're going to be right, and just trying to cope with just how much money they've cost people over the years by telling them to stay away from this space.
Yeah. 我用中文说了，因为 Matt since you already talk in English so 我用中文讲了，因为我觉得是这样的，就是我想跟大家分享一个我自己的想法，就是很多年前当 iPhone 最早 release 这个第一个iPhone 的时候，很多人是不相信，很多人说这个电话怎么可能是这个样子呢？就有个键盘我们就很好用了，那个 BlackBerry 就很好用了等等啊。或者是我们最早接触互联网的时候，很多人都觉得哇，这东西不可靠等等等等。所有这些其实那如果我们往回看几十年，当时就这样啊。那当然现在我们都觉得哇，这个电话已经没有这个电话，我们基本上我们这个生活就不是现在这个样子。那同样的事情会不会发生在5年、10年以后？那个时候可能不是电话，有可能就是我们今天谈到的这些crypto。DeFi Decentralized Finance NFT 或者 Metaverse 会不会发生？我不知道，我也没有水晶球可以预测未来。但是有一点我是知道，就是说我们多花一点时间去学习，我们多花一点时间去这种追踪这些最新的这种技术跟发展，对我们自己，对我们的小孩，对他们自己将来的发展，因为还是那句话，他们是将来。是我们的引领者，他们是将来的未来，我觉得会有莫大的好处啊。所以我还是觉得，如果有机会，我们可以继续讨论啊。这其实我自己为什么对这些领域这么感兴趣，也是因为我觉得这个里面我们的未来一定在某种程度上会受到这些新的技术和这些新的思维的影响。到底影响到什么程度，我们现在还不知道。但是 在某种程度上一定会受到他们的非常大的这种影响啊。Yeah, that's everything. Yeah, once again, thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone to stay this late. If you guys want, we can try to maybe set up another time to talk, right? It doesn't have to be this, a formal seminar. It can be maybe just a casual, casual talk. We can share more, personal stories, personal opinions, right? We can set up another time, right? For those of you who want to have my spreadsheet or maybe a video recording, just send us email, right? Send us email or maybe send us a WeChat, right? Or we're gonna forward all the files to you. Okay. All right. So, thank you. Yeah,
everybody.
thank you all. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. And yeah, good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, Dan, send us your email address so we can share the file with you. All right.